Welcome back, everybody, to a very exciting episode. We have a special guest in the house. We're going to be covering everything from the charts. He's a very good, very gifted chartist. We also have the E-Hex whale pump and dump. There's single-sided staking. A lot of people are frustrated about that. We don't know who, but we're going to be talking about that. There's also the Richard Hart absence. Maybe we'll cover it. I know Brandon's been very understanding and empathetic to that situation. So we're going to be talking about that. And obviously, we're just going to be talking about, what the next couple months are going to give us, what we think they're going to give us. But definitely, we want to focus a lot on the positive because the price has been incredible. But we'll also go look at maybe the things that people are skeptical about. So what's going on, Brandon?
Oh man, it's like I was saying earlier, it's great to hear from you, man. It's been a while since we've had a minute to have a chat. There's been quite a bit going on in terms of, man, this is such a fascinating space that we're in, man. Like this whole crypto investment space, I love it because so many of us share this spirit of enterprise, right? And we're all trying to figure this crazy landscape out that's so volatile, so changing, and so unclear at times as to what it takes to make it at the other end of this thing. So it's such a fascinating industry that we're all part of here, man. And there's been a lot of interesting developments, both in price, in terms of kind of news in general, both within kind of our niche and outside of our niche since the last time we talked. So there's a lot to delve into, man. I'm looking forward to kind of getting into it.
Yeah, same here. And the one thing that probably the one lesson that the markets have taught us is that the Bitcoin price matters, even in this niche.
No, we're decorrelated.
Yeah, we thought we were decorrelated.
We're decorrelated.
That was one of the things that people thought because there was some all-time highs reached when Bitcoin was dumping, but obviously it seems like that's really usually not the case. So I want to look at the Bitcoin halving chart. That's really how we always start things off. But let's just say hi to the chat. You got a response for this?
Nobody wants to hear Brandon cry. I don't want to hear me cry either. He was nice crying bottom signal. Yeah, so look, a lot of this is because like you kind of alluded during the intro. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows, but for the one guy who's like, oh, what's going on here? I've been very active on Twitter, very openly, willingly criticizing Richard Hart for turning against the principles that he espoused for years. And I got to be honest with you, man, I feel like this community is suffering from amnesia because I feel like I'm the only one who actually listened to the things that Richard Hart preached about for years and actually took them to heart and didn't just throw them out the back window the second it became convenient. Things like, be wary of hypocritical founders, be wary of promise tokens, be wary of people who don't deliver on design intent. These things were principles that the HEX community championed for the first 2 years of HEX's existence better than any other community. And now that we're in a similar position to be, open to some of these same critiques, everyone's suffering from amnesia. And because I'm bringing up the obvious, people don't like that. People prefer that we stick our head in the ground like ostriches and not call out the obvious reality that anyone outside our Twitter space can very obviously see. So, yeah, no, if that's what you consider crying, man, just acknowledging reality, I have been doing a bit of that because if I may just wrap up with this point, it's not just me who sees it. Here's the problem. It's the bear market, man. No one's paying attention. Eric Wells fucked off. But during the bull, when people start paying attention, when we start getting more green candles, it won't just be me saying it. So I think it's better that us as a community talk about these issues, especially for me, who's actually still a bull, and consider these things preemptively before these critiques and these FUD points inevitably come in the bull when other people with eyes start paying attention.
Okay, we're gonna get into that. You have very strong feelings. You know what I was thinking of naming the episode? Hex Therapy Live.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
It's is it Brandon who's crazy, or is everyone else crazy? We'll get into that. Let's just say hi to John Holmes. It's nice to get some love. What's up, John Holmes? Bob Stutz, he's a patron. Big shout out to him. You guys can join the Patreon. Links in the description if you want. Humberto, what's going on? Humberto, John, he wants to know where the parity is. Maybe we'll briefly touch on that. Westcott Crypto, big shout out to Westcott Crypto. Westcott, I mean, that guy, when the rubber hits the road, he shows up. He's been streaming maybe twice a day sometimes.
Oh, he's been killing it.
Yeah, he's been. I was actually listening to him last night with the Disciple. I really like the Disciple. Disciple, you don't have to be hating so much on Brandon. Okay, I saw your tweet.
Oh yeah, I don't think he likes me, but I think they're killing it.
Yeah, man, come on. Maybe you guys should get together on the stream. But yeah, they're doing a great job. Very talented. Alexandra, what's up? Why did Richard Hart created a pulse chain for the Hex community? Believe it or not, I mean, it's a little hard to believe sometimes. And yeah, everyone did get their copies. Richard Hart hasn't said much, whatever. It's a whole thing, but it's very, very. We could do a whole show about that. Gunter says, Johnny, where's the parity? Where's the 1-to-1? You got anything to say about that?
1-to-1. Look, I don't think to say. First and foremost, congratulations to you E-Hex guys. You know, that was a very nice pump. I think we're all getting a taste of what the upcoming bull market has to offer. Whether we get price parity, I don't know, man. I honestly tried to look into buying some E-Hex the other day just for fun, and like I couldn't even figure it out because the thing is, you know, I was even tweeting about like, where the hell do you buy E-Hex nowadays?
You buy it on Pulsechain.
Yeah, you buy it on Pulsechain, exactly. You know, some people were saying like 1 inch, but 1 inch is banned in a lot of places.
Yeah,
you know, I'm pretty sure the Americans can't use 1 inch, and so it's honestly very hard. I'm like, I mean, me as a YouTuber, I've been taking a lot of time off recently. Been more busy nowadays as of late, but I was even having a hard time buying like E-Hex, and I'm like I'm more into this than the vast majority of retail out there. So the fact that I'm having not an easy time buying E-Hex, I don't know, man. I hope we get parity. I don't think we will. Who knows? And there's also a very big difference between who's performing in the short term and who might perform in the long term. You know, like Hex, both B-Hex, PX has been outperforming Pulsechain in the short term, but I still think it's an open question whether or not that'll be the case in the long term. But yeah, those are my thoughts for now.
Is Brandon excited about the pumps?
Yeah, absolutely. Like so many people, I find it so funny, man, how while I have been, I'll admit, very, how did Funny Jim put it? The guy with the pitchforks, very staunchly criticizing Richard Hart. It's so funny how, because I've been doing this, it seems to me how everyone's seemingly forgotten the years of bullishness that I've had, which I still have. I've been publicly tweeting the vast majority of my buys, not all of them, but the vast majority. I publicly came out the day of the SEC announcing my bullishness on like Richard Hart and called the bottom. It's the top pinned tweet on my Twitter profile. It still remains the top pinned tweet. Me calling the bottom, and at the point of the highest flood, me coming out and saying I'm still bullish, and I've been calling out my buys ever since. But there has been some legitimate changes. Like before, I was a Richard Hart ecosystem maximalist. I would only invest in either Richard Hart coins or tokens and coins building on Pulsechain. But now we can delve into it more. But I am diversifying outside of just Richard Hart things. But I'm still a bull, guys. Like I've been publicly tweeting my buys. My lowest buy for Hex, I publicly tweeted this out, was just under 0.008. It was 7.8, so 20% under a penny. That was my lowest Hex buy ever. So I just want to make it clear that one can criticize what warrants criticism and still be a bull. You don't have to be some unthinking sycophant in order to be a part of this thing. And I understand, frankly, a lot of the backlash I've been getting. Because again, like I mentioned to you, man, I'm like the guy showing up at a party talking about AA meetings. No one wants to hear it. I understand fully. Like I'm very well aware that I'm not making any friends, criticizing what I think very justifiably warrants criticism at a time where everything's down and sentiment's down and everyone's depressed. No one wants to hear, me fucking rain on everyone's parade, but the rain is there regardless of whether or not I point it out, in my opinion. And I think it warrants being pointed out.
All right.
I don't know the answer to the question.
All right. We'll get into that, but let's start off with the Bitcoin halving schedule. I think that's very important because I think Bitcoin's price performance is very important. So, yeah, why don't you get us into that?
Yeah. So, man, like we were kind of joking about earlier, we are not a decorrelated space. The most, I say this every time we come on the stream, the most important correlation factor that we need to understand in this entire market, no matter what kind of crypto you're into, whether it's NFTs, HEX, whatever niche thing you're into, is the correlation of sentiment. Everything is correlated through sentiment. And like I mentioned, what industry we're in the crypto industry. The biggest crypto in this industry is Bitcoin. It's been forever and, likely to be so for at least a little while longer. And so what happens to Bitcoin is extremely relevant to understand because it influences the rest of the market. If investors in Bitcoin are feeling bullish, then that affects the sentiment of the entirety of the altcoin market. And as we've been seeing recently here on the monthly candle, we have a green monthly candle, which has been, kind of helping out some of different altcoins, having a little bit of runs, a little bit of pumps as well, including our ecosystem, which is great to see. Congrats to those who've been buying dips and holding, over the long term. And one of the most important things about Bitcoin we got to understand is the Bitcoin halving. Like, this is what I love to bring up. I brought it up before. I'm going to bring it up again because it's so important. A lot of people think this crypto industry is so opaque that there's hardly any tangibles one can grab onto and understand in order to kind of get a better understanding of, whether or not this thing is just purely random, or can we get, a better understanding of some likelihoods. And one thing we can grab onto and understand to have a better understanding of what is and isn't likely is the Bitcoin halvings, where every 4 years we have a bullish catalyst that kickstarts, a new narrative, kickstarts a shift in sentiment, leads to people feeling more comfortable buying. And this isn't just my opinion. We can see this based off the history here. We see each one of these white circles has been a Bitcoin halving. And following each Bitcoin halving, we've seen essentially the beginning of a bull market, roughly each one lasting about a year and a half since the latest Bitcoin halving. What we've also seen historically is run-ups leading to each Bitcoin halving, which is exactly what we're seeing now. So the next Bitcoin halving is March 2024. And so that's when I think we're going to start trending on a macro direction, seeing higher highs and higher lows, where before each Bitcoin halving, each pump is they're rather untrustworthy, where it's kind of iffy whether or not we can sustainably put in new higher highs and new higher lows. It isn't until the latest Bitcoin halving after each, where we can sustainably, comfortably on a macro scale maintain higher highs and higher lows. So it's a good time to try and accumulate dips before the latest each Bitcoin halving, and after each Bitcoin halving, you can kind of have a bit more confidence in that we might not dump so hard. The dumps aren't as sustainable, but you also won't get as good valuations if you're trying to buy pre-Bitcoin halving.
Okay, and just looking at the chart, it's really interesting how everything's really just been playing out. I mean, you talked about it every time you came on the show about, pumps not really being sustainable and being a great time to buy dips, or I prefer DCAing, but whatever it is, a great accumulation area. And everybody that's been following that has been, is sitting pretty nicely now. And what do you think about that?
Well, not only are they just sitting nicely now, but it's a taste of what's to come. Like, we've had our, little bit of a parabolic run up within our community, a little one, right? And I also got to say that whenever we touch one extreme, extremes in crypto are ultimately unsustainable, both in a macro and a micro sense. So whenever we have a parabolic run up and we start to break parabolic shape, which it looks like we're doing, we might have a little bit of a correction. We might have a lot of a correction. But the point is, we're starting to get a taste of what the upcoming bull market has to offer. So, even though, I bought, the lows on Hex, 20% below a penny, that was my lowest DCA ever. I'm not selling, and I don't plan on selling until 12 to 15 months after the latest Bitcoin halving. And there's even some more factors you could look at in terms of trying to time, but take profit strategy even better. But the point is, folks, on a macro scale, I think things are looking pretty optimistic. I think, like you mentioned, man, we are on schedule. I think there's reason to be hopeful for sure. While in the short term, I want to make it clear that there's always the possibility that in the short term we could have severe corrections. We're not at the Bitcoin, halving yet. We're getting close, so I would suspect this on the macro trend upwards. But dips are your friend. Red candles are good for buying.
Yeah. Well said. The disciple's here, by the way, and I modded him. Big shout out to the disciple.
Right on.
You got anything to say for the disciple?
Yeah, what's he saying? I don't care enough to say I don't like Brandon, but I will call out the crying during the bear. It's spoiled behavior. Yeah, look, man, I say this with love and peace, but that's an extremely retarded response. And it's not just you who's been having that response. It's pretty much the entirety of the response I've been hearing, to all my critiques on Twitter, because this is what you got to understand. People who only tell you what you want to hear, people who only tell you good things, people who tell you that risk is irrelevant, they're not your friend, man. People who only told me what I wanted to hear last bull market cost me a great deal. Risks are not irrelevant. And, we're not talking about sports, man. We're talking about people's life savings. And like the reason why I feel so like I have to consider these risks and talk about these risks is because the consequences for me getting this wrong are dire. I am not financially free. My family is struggling financially. I cannot afford to adopt a naive, sycophantic attitude when it comes to investing in these markets. Be sure, can anyone buy one crypto and get lucky and it does well? Yeah, they can, but you can't adopt an attitude of naivety and succeed long term. That's kind of how I need to operate. I cannot allow myself to ignore obvious risk factors, especially because they are so obvious in my opinion.
All right. Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
Sure.
We'll get into it. Disciple, and we'll be looking at your comments when we get into it. But let's do the hex chart. I think the hex chart is something that we'd want to look at. Nice pump right there.
Yeah, man. So this is a great pump we're seeing here. Again, we had a parabolic rally. Looks like we're starting to break the shape of the parabola. Typically when people try and read the tea leaves, what some people like to do is draw a Fibonacci here, see where the 618 lands. You can either do it wick by wick or candle closing by candle closing, see where that lies, and that's typically where we could fall to. But this is just a bit of tea leaf reading. We never really know how far we could correct for sure, but this happens to look to me like a bit of parabolic shape that's been broken, and we might go on to see a little bit of a correction, which is great because I'm looking forward to buying dips further on. And so even though we've had a little bit of a pump, I'm hoping, given that we've had an uptrend and we're seeing some signs that we might be breaking the uptrend, that we might have a bit of a correction over the next couple of days and weeks, which looks like a great buying opportunity for me. Not to mention that we're the most overbought we've been in our history. We've had the most amount of daily green candles in a row in our in E-Hex's history. Same with Pulsechain. So when you start to see some of these signs of, hey, we're the most overbought we've ever been on kind of some of these macro scales, we have had the most green candles we've ever had since P-Hex's existence, Pulsechain's existence. We had a little bit of a parabolic shape, and now we're starting to see some signs of a bit of a correction. It's not unreasonable to think that, hey, over the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, we might go on to see a bit of a correction, or this could just be a bit of a consolidation zone, bit of a flag forming before the next leg up. You really never know for sure, which is why dollar cost averaging, weighted dollar cost averaging is what I like to do.
Yeah, it's also funny how like when it was all the way down at its lows in that sort of consolidation area to the left of the parabola. Everybody was complaining that it's not doing anything, and now that it's up, everybody wants it to go back so they could scoop up. So I think maybe we could get a retrace, but I don't know if the market's going to give us under a penny anymore. And that's why I've been dollar cost averaging, and I'm pretty happy right now. But
yeah,
also,
isn't it fun? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go.
No, I was just gonna say, it's so funny how volatile these markets are. It's made to shake you out, man. Like, look at this. We have a bit of a wedge, ascending triangle, just basically a consolidation pattern here. Breakdown, looks like death and destruction, and then just immediate parabolic rise up. This is like perfectly meant to shake people out. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and if you zoom out, I see a massive bullish divergence on the RSI. Pretty. You got the lower on the RSI. You got the lower high and then the higher high, but on the chart you have the higher high and the lower high.
Where specifically are you seeing that?
You see the highest point in the RSI
on the
in the RSI, and then to the left of it there's a lower high, like all the way to the more to the left, more and more right there. And then on the chart you see a higher high and lower high.
Oh yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, no, exactly. That is bullish divergence. Whenever you see in price action, like the inverse, right? I thank you for pointing that out. I was having a tough time seeing that. This lower high in price paired with a higher high in RSI, that's bullish divergence. And we've been suppressed for so long, man. We've been suppressed for so long. We had the SEC FUD, and in terms of things that could crash, in terms of things. Negative things that could happen. Like I said, the day that the SEC news dropped, that seems to be, to me, like the worst of what could happen. I think short of Richard Hart being charged criminally, short of us completely, or Richard Hart completely losing his case in a completely capitulatory manner where there's no give and take, that seems to me like the only other FUD event that could happen that's potentially worse that hasn't happened yet. And short of those things happening, there's only so many theoretical giant FUD events that could happen, and I think the worst already happened. So we had the worst. We had giant corrections. We had a correction from launch. We had a giant correction with the news of the SEC. We've been suppressed forever. But now, we're approaching the Bitcoin halving. We're starting to see some higher highs, some higher lows. It seems to me, man, like when I said the day of the SEC news dropping, that the macro bottom around what was it? Kind of a bunch of zeros and a 3-4 for Pulsechain. That was the macro bottom. Let's see, where was it?
Yeah, and I think like so you have like the price chart seems like the risk is to the upside, and
macro long term,
and the news seems like the risk is to the upside because like we already had all the bad news play, like, and despite that the price is pumping. Like very few potential like bad news that could come out that I think could really flush the price, and then there's so much potential good news to come out. Like for example, you had like Richard Hart not streaming, which we'll get into, but like that wasn't really priced in, and I think that really hurt the chart. But like now it's priced in, and I think the next thing to happen would be he's streaming and he's active. Also, the SEC thing happened. The only thing that potentially could happen, like you said, is obviously criminal charges, but no news is good news. And they've been saying criminal charges ever since the SEC lawsuit came out, and it still hasn't happened. So I think that's very good. I think people like to think of bull markets and the price being up like crazy, and that's a couple months away, but I think it's a couple months away, but even like until then, if the price hits 7-8 cents, everyone that's been dollar cost averaging is sitting pretty nice, which people underrate.
Yeah, and to have a bit of perspective, even though we've had this massive pump recently, we're still well below the low ranges before the SEC news hit. So in a sense, even in the grand scheme of things, long term, I think even now is a fantastic valuation. Sure, can we see some signs that we might correct a little bit more, or we might not in the short term, but there's a bit of signs to think that it's not a reasonable thing that we could in the short term. But on the macro, I mean, we're still below the previous lows of before the SEC news dropped, and on the macro, we're still nowhere near the bull market, man. The bull market's not likely to happen until, you know, mid 2024 or sometime well into 2025 when things get real euphoric and real parabolic. So there's plenty of time. And not just that, you got to understand that HEX was a giant lagger last bull cycle. And the altcoins lag behind Bitcoin. They lag behind Ethereum to varying degrees. So I think our time that we have to wait is still quite a bit, man. Like, you know, altcoins in general lag behind Bitcoin, Ethereum, and HEX was a huge lagger. Last cycle, it had its run-ups for sure, but it's crazy euphoric period where it's just absolutely parabolic. That wasn't until well after Bitcoin and Ethereum. So, you know, it's not, you know, entirely impossible to think that might be the case, you know, this next time, which just means, you know, we have more time to dollar cost average if you're a bull, which I am, you fuckers.
For some people, it's hard to believe.
I mean, it's like people see nuance for the first time and they lose their minds. Which, again, you know, I don't think they're like
nuance is hard to communicate on Twitter, though.
To be fair, I understand. I have been going like really hard, and like I understand completely how someone who either doesn't know me, doesn't know my history, just sees that, and I can understand how people it can interpret things in the worst possible light. Like I'm not, you know, it doesn't surprise me that people are interpreting things the way they are.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so I guess that's you want to look at the PulseX chart. You want to pull it up, or I mean, the thing is, like, it's all really. If you look at one chart, you kind of look at all of
them. No, exactly. We're all correlated. Oh man, this little the screenshot's been there for for a while ago. Look, guys, I'm using log. It's still death and destruction. Yeah, no, look, unfortunately, you know, PulseX sackers. Which I was a huge PulseX sacker. I put my entire life savings, not just into the. No, I did. I've been very publicly saying this for years. I put my entire life savings into the PulseX sack, and then all the life savings I had accumulated since sack from live, I put in once PulseX had gone live. Thankfully, I did manage to dollar cost average some dips, but it was way far away from where we're at right now. So yeah, no, unfortunately, people who took the most risk betting on Richard Hart got the least reward with PulseX. But hey, that's the game. You live and learn.
Yeah, but we're still in it. So, I mean, I hope.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, like the gains for sackers will forever be ultra wrecked. Like for example, if PulseX went on to do 100x, for sackers might only get a 10x. And that's if you manage to sell anywhere near the top, which the vast majority of people don't. So, you know, it's unfortunate that people like me are forever wrecked.
Well,
for betting on Richard Hart.
You guess you got to buy when it dumps.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's the
maybe you get 1,000x or a 10,000x. People were talking about that during the bull market. It seems ancient, but people were talking about PulseX doing a 10,000x. That'll be 100x for
sackers if you get anywhere close to on the top, which the vast majority of people don't.
All right, but we're gonna be looking at that. I guess the thing that while we're on the PulseX subject is what we could talk about is the single-sided staking. I know that's kind of what got you blocked by Richard.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, when Richard Hart, for the first 2 years of HEX being live, all he preached was the fact that what matters more so than anything else is proper tokenomics, proper game theory, having a bullish narrative. And so that's all he preached about. And every single Hexican influencer, YouTuber, that's all he would speak about. And I remember one of the things that attracted me so much to the HEX community when I was first looking deeply into it was the fact that I found that these guys had the moral and the intellectual high ground, where all the critiques that these guys were getting were frankly just nonsense. It was low grade, just non-understanding, surface level. All the major critiques that the HEX had back in the day were just surface level, non-understanding of the fundamentals. And so what really attracted me, one of the things that really attracted me was that, hey, these guys are misunderstood. There's this giant perception of us being somehow scammers, being in the wrong. But I looked into it. I'm like, I don't see anything here. I see some risk factors maybe, but I don't see anything here that gets anywhere close to the line of scam. And so I love the fact that, like, hey, there's this community that's like has the moral and intellectual high ground that everyone's misunderstanding. And if and when that changes, because I think the truth wins out eventually, it seems to me like there's a giant opportunity there. And it was because we preached about the importance of having solid fundamentals, good tokenomics, a bullish narrative, having a bullish founder, a founder who isn't a hypocrite, who stands by his principles, all these things we preached about and criticized to no end, man. You got to understand, for the people who weren't around back in the day, every single Hex YouTuber criticized to no end, and very rightly so, other communities that were lacking these things. And so I bought into that. I said, you know what? These guys are making a lot of sense. The principles they stand by make a lot of sense to me. And so I bought into it. I think, these things are right. Having very solid fundamentals, bullish tokenomics, great game theory, a great bullish narrative. These are all very legitimate things that Hex had. And so, then Pulsechain, PulseX came along. Richard mentioned that, PulseX would be kind of a main DEX, might be kind of like a pancake swap thing. We had single-sided staking during testnet. We had, a little, what's it called? Like a disclaimer on one of the pages talking about single-sided staking. We had, the party token during testnet, all these things. And so, these seem great to me. Earning a yield is great. It's the whole reason why there's dividend investors. It's the whole reason why Hex is valuable in the first place. I cannot believe I'm in the position of having to explain to Hexicans of all people why earning a yield matters. Jesus Christ. And so, come PulseX being live, now all of a sudden, hey, not only are you not getting these things, but you, my community, are insane for ever having thought that I was going to deliver this thing in the first place. So Richard gaslighted us. The first time that we got a hint that single-sided staking might not happen was Richard Hart gaslighting us into believing that he never set the design intent or the design expectation for single-sided staking. And then he flip-flop back and forth, and now one day we might get it. And so now we're in the position of having this duct tape on token that may or may not have a use case, may or may not one day do something, a founder who may or may not one day fix it, which is exactly what every single Hex YouTuber criticized everyone else for 2 years ago. And everyone is suffering from amnesia, in my opinion, in order to cope with the obvious hypocrisy of our founder not delivering on design intent, being a hypocrite, and turning against the principles he espoused for years. Man, this is frankly absurd, and I can't believe how I'm seemingly one of the few in the position to be able to acknowledge this. Because look, once you start acknowledging certain things, man, I could see how for a lot of people who aren't, I don't want to, I can see how for a lot of people adopting the psychological tactic of avoiding any of the risk is a way for people to hold through the volatility and survive long term. But I can't adopt that style of thinking myself, man.
Yeah. So there are a few things you said. It's not just a duct tape token, because if you hold PulseX, you do get to earn the fees because of the buy and burn. So you are earning the fees from the trading volume. So it does have that. Single-sided staking, I actually didn't want it for PulseX because I thought that could sort of take away from the use case of Hex, and also like it does give way to legitimize a lot of rug pull tokens because they're on the front end and people are earning it. So I thought like maybe having single-sided staking to earn ink maybe was a viable compromise. As far as like Richard Hart, he did go back on it after he banned you. He did send the message that it looks like people do want single-sided staking. And I think even though I didn't like single-sided staking, I did think that it was important that he keep his word. And I know people did say that there were updates to the PulseX front end, and people are speculating that that's related to the single-sided staking. So I don't see why it still might not happen. But what do you think about everything I said?
Look, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. Again, I continue to be a holder, and I've also said that if we do get PulseX single side staking, I consider buying again. And you also mentioned how I bring up the criticism of PulseX kind of being a duct tape on token, not really having any utility. But the buy and burn, I suppose, does create a degree of attachment from the token to the actual utility of the DEX. I would agree to that. And again, that's among some of the reasons why I haven't sold and continue to buy, not PulseX, but Pulsechain and HEX. And but it does still seem to me like a half measure. And if it is indeed an issue that the use case of PulseX overlaps with HEX, why is this just being sorted out now? Why was it that during the SAC phase where Richard was raising billions of dollars, he was okay with having everyone believe that he would have single side staking, but after he raised all the money, now it's an open question whether we should or shouldn't deliver on design intent and to what extent and when it may not happen. Man, if this shit was being pulled by any other founder, every single HEX YouTuber would rightly be screaming from the rooftops, calling it out. It's amazing to me how massively hypocritical the founder's been, and a lot of people within the community as well. And I understand it's a coping mechanism. Psychology-wise, I understand why people adopt it. But just imagine for a moment that someone who isn't Richard Hart raises billions of dollars from his community, promotes himself as a public fighter, a public, intellectual for years. The day he launches his token, after 48 hours of no sleep, he goes and he debates 4 or 3 lawyers for 4 hours, debating the merits about what isn't and isn't a security. Fights for years and years and years. Says, I'm going to be a public fighter. I'm going to call out other founders who are pulling bullshit. I'm going to call out Satoshi for abandoning his community. Raises billions of dollars to deliver on things. And then the moment actual regulatory scrutiny gets introduced, vanishes in the thin air, and then doesn't deliver on design intent and is dubious as to whether he may or may not deliver on design intent. And we don't actually know for sure now whether or not it's him tweeting or if it's some fucking AI bot or his assistant tweeting for him. This is frankly old behavior that every single Hexican 2 years ago would have called out if it was any other founder. But because it's our bags, because it's our founder, now everyone's conveniently forgotten all the principles that made this community great 2 years ago. I fucking haven't. I remember everything that was. I remember the early days. I watched all the Richard Hart streams. I remember the shit he preached. It wasn't just some short-term narrative to help pump the price. No, I actually believe in those principles that, hey, these things actually matter. But it seems to me like the Hex community is now saying that, oh, hey, all these principles we preached for 2 years, oh, those were just, some little short-term narratives that we all said to each other just so we can help pump the price.
Yeah, well, I definitely think there is a legitimate gripe in terms of the single-sided staking. I know a lot of people are quietly grieving about it, and a lot of people,
by the way, I'm definitely not the only one who shares my concerns. A lot of people share my concerns but won't say it publicly. I know that for a fucking fact.
Yeah. And I think that I definitely think that I mean the market has agreed with you. PulseX dropped massively, and I think a big part of it was the single-sided staking not being there. I still think that he's gonna deliver single-sided staking. Do you think he's gonna deliver single-sided staking?
Oh, will our founder come and save us from this promise token? Man, everyone called out these promise tokens, and now we're in the same position, hoping that our dear leader comes and saves us from this promise token. Look, whether it happens or not, I think PulseX is ultimately correlated to Pulsechain and HEX. So if they do well, I think PulseX will do well. But when the fundamentals objectively get worse, I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that, hey, maybe we don't perform as well as if we had more bullish narratives, if we had a more better use case. And look, here's what I got to say, man.
But do you think ultimately there will be a single-sided staking?
I have no idea,
especially because of the updates.
I hope we get it, but I don't have confidence, given how flip-floppy Richard's been, that it's going to be anything great. Maybe he just, delivers, hey, you stake your Pulse X, get 1-2% ink for the foreseeable future. I don't at this point have confidence that Richard Hart's going to deliver on some amazing version of single-side staking. At this point, I think if he does it, he does just some whatever, just to say that, oh, hey, this is technically single-side staking, earn your 2% ink, there you go, I gave it to you. Because at this point, I don't understand how one has confidence in some super amazing version of single-side staking when he's been so flip-flopping. And also, by the way, now that I'm remembering, KDP told me how Richard Hart in a private Telegram group was talking about how he didn't like single-side staking, how he thought he was stupid, while publicly allowing people like me to think that he was going to deliver on some amazing version of single-side staking. So that's also incredibly disgusting behavior that every single Hexagon would rightly criticize in any other founder if it weren't Richard Hart. To say behind the scenes in a private Telegram group, talking about how I don't really like single-side staking, I don't really think it's a good idea, but to publicly not comment on that, to publicly allow people like me,
while he was saying that he likes it, or was it after?
No, it was ambiguous. He wasn't really commenting on it, but he said he was going to do single-side staking, and we had on the testnet, we had the little blurbs on the website, all this stuff. So I thought, hey, we're going to get single-side staking. But I remember KDP and me were having a Twitter back and forth a couple months ago, and she mentioned that, hey, Brandon, on one of these private Telegram groups, Richard Hart was mentioning how he didn't really like single-side staking. The fact that she mentioned that as like
well, he mentioned it publicly also. That was the big. To be fair, he did mention it publicly.
Okay, I don't remember the exact timeline of things, whether or not this conversation was had before or after. Richard Hart said that publicly, so I can't comment on that because I honestly don't remember the timeline.
All right. I'll say I definitely think it was a mistake. I mean, he probably shouldn't have done it in the first place, or now that he did it, there has to be something given. I did say and Archetype, thank you very much for the super chat, $7. Thank you very much. Boys are back. Yeah, big shout out to Archetype. I did a stream with him. I did say I'll go to the disciples' comments. Is that okay if we look at them? Because I did say that
of course, please.
He's a friend of the stream. I think he's really, really talented. I
think him and Westcott have been killing it. They've been doing a great job.
Yeah. And also, like, for the most part, like, he did deliver. He did deliver on Pulsechain. He did deliver
for the most part, sure.
So, like, it's important to realize, like,
I mentioned earlier,
he still can, and I think will deliver on the single sided.
I sure should, for my sake, hope so, because I'm a big Pulse 6 holder and bull.
Okay, and he's massively hypocritical because you didn't get single sided staking when you wanted. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, again, this is a very weak point, because the point is not that I want single side staking now. The point is that the fact that I'm even in a position to say, hey, are we going to get single side staking? Are we going to get it now? Are we going to get it a week from now? Are we going to get it a year from now? Look, man, Disciple, I don't know if you were around when Hex first launched, but I watched I wasn't around when Hex first launched, but I got in a bit later. But I went back and I watched every live stream. I watched every Richard Hart thing. And he would criticize, and every Hexagon YouTuber would criticize to no end other founders that would pull this exact same bullshit. That, oh, hey, we have a promise token. One day on our roadmap, we might do this, we might do that. The thing that made Hex so great was that it was a finished product. No, we don't have a roadmap. Our great t-shirt system is fucking here today. And every single Hex YouTuber, including Richard Hart, would to no end every single day criticize everyone else who's pulling the exact same bullshit that he is pulling now. The fact that, hey, maybe one day the dear leader comes and saves us. 2 years ago, everyone was criticizing other people who are doing this exact same thing. That is the issue, man. The hypocrisy. I'm feel like I'm the only one who actually remembered the shit that Richard Hart preached 2 years ago. Everyone has conveniently forgotten this in order to cope with the hypocrisy. Look, whether we get it now or later, whenever we get it, it's a good thing. But the fact that we're all in a position to argue with each other, we shouldn't even have to be arguing with each other. This we should be singing kumbaya hand by hand. But due to all this ambiguity, us all bulls are now all arguing with each other because of this unnecessary position that we don't have to be in as to whether or not our things will have any utility.
Well, I think Disciple would argue that he says when you want it. So I think he'd argue that it's going to come. I think there's every incentive also to do it because all the new decks is coming out like 9-inch, and then there's the PHUX. They are implementing it. So I don't think it's in Richard's best interest to abandon it. I think a lot
of what Richard's doing is not in Richard's best.
Well, we'll get into that, but no need for the name calling, Disciple. Okay, come on, let's be civilized. And
it's funny because at the end of the day, man, like these guys, they don't realize because they hear me say all these things that they would see in Eric Wall, that they would see a Fudster say, but the shit you guys got to realize is I'm in this thing with you fuckers. I'm still a bull. I'm still buying and holding this shit. All right, I'm not one. This is what you guys got to understand. You guys got to up your level of criticism because I'm not one of these Eric Wall guys, one of these, giant YouTubers who just don't get it, who have a surface level understanding. I've been in this shit for years. I get this as much as you guys do. You guys got to up your level of criticism. Calling me fat or just critiquing my masculinity is not a good enough argument, guys, because it's not just me who sees it. Right now, it's the bear. People aren't paying attention. But when people start paying attention, I'm not the only one with eyes and ears and access to Twitter and in the history of Richard's tweets, in the history of Richard's YouTube channel. We need to up our game because these are legitimate criticisms that you're going to hear other people start saying when the number goes up in the upcoming bull.
Yeah, well, I think this is a fair criticism. You're being called out for your approach. He says you have a legitimate gripe, but
that's fair.
It's been a little bit of a hyper focus on the negative, especially in a pump. Is that fair? So that's fair.
I don't know what more like.
Maybe we need to get.
I can understand like people saying, "Hey, you're very focused on the negative," and I could grant that. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm publicly like tweeting my buys. Like, what do you want from me, man? Like, I tweet out almost all my buys. I'm still a bull. The day the SEC news dropped, I came out and I called the bottom and I came out and I said, hey, I'm still a bull. Unlike Richard Hart, who publicly painted himself as a fighter for years, who the day HEX went live, spent 4 hours and 2 days of no sleep debating 3 lawyers on whether HEX is or isn't a security. You juxtapose that with today, where when actual regulatory scrutiny is brought, the guy who painted himself as a fighter when it was just pretend, but when the real thing comes, vanishes, disappears in the thin air. If any other guys, for real, ask yourself, if any other founder did this shit, would you react the same way? Of course not. Of course not. I'm just being intellectually consistent, and now everyone's lost their mind.
Yeah. Well, Disciple wants to come on. I don't know if I don't know. You might have to do like a whole stream with you guys if you're. I know that you like debating. What do you think?
I don't want to take over your screen, but I'm happy to have a conversation for sure.
All right. I'll sign them?
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll also say that I did want to get into the Richard Hart absence, because I think that like it was a little bit off-putting in the beginning because we didn't know what was going on. But now that we know that there's a SEC investigation, it has to be strategic, and there are a lot of things that you can and can't do, and there's a lot of things that he can't really talk about. So it really makes sense for him to not be streaming. I actually spoke to somebody who knows a lot about this. I don't want to disclose their credentials or anything, but when I said that once the SEC investigation dropped, once they were subpoenaing the influencers, he stopped streaming. They said that person said it was a very smart thing to do. So I think you're overrating it a little bit.
So this is where I will grant that I think this particular point of how to react when the law gets involved. This is where there's a bit more nuance involved. And I know people seem to have some kind of allergic reaction to when people contemplate nuance. But if we can for a moment here, I think that this is one issue where I think both sides have a decent point, where it's true when legal matters start to get brought up. Any lawyer will tell you, shut the fuck up. You know, we're going to work on our defense behind the scenes. And once it's time to go to court, we'll go balls to the wall. But you don't do it prematurely. You don't say things that could be used against you, prematurely. And that makes a lot of sense. If you go to any lawyer, they'll tell you, shut your mouth. We're going to figure this out. Once it's time to fight, then we'll fight. I understand that. That actually does make a lot of sense. No. But on the other hand, that is a strategic choice. The choice to be quiet once legal matters get introduced. Like, people seem to think that Richard Hart is somehow being, force held, muzzled by Navy SEALs because there's some legal thing going on. But if you look at Donald Trump, that guy is stacking criminal charges like they're Pokemon cards, trying to collect them all. And meanwhile, you can't get that guy to shut up.
Yeah, but it is a little different because the regulatory framework in crypto is very opaque, and like there's not the sense of like we know exactly what we can and can't say. So I think it's, and also like Trump has leverage of, hundreds of millions of followers, so like it's not so
it's
easy.
A very different situation. It's not one for one comparable. It's a bit of an apple to orange situation. But the reason why I bring it up is only to highlight the fact that it is a strategic choice.
Yeah.
And the fact that Richard Hart painted himself as a public fighter for all these years and now is trying to pull a Satoshi when a regulatory scrutiny is actually brought, there is the appearance of hypocrisy, which is an issue.
Okay, I did want to say that it's not Satoshi, he's still active on Twitter. He still doubles down on being involved. But let's get into that. We have the Pulse Disciple is here. We're going to bring him on. I know Westcott's got to go to his Uber Eats and order some more popcorn. I don't think he priced this in. He's definitely having a great time. Disciple, please be respectful. I know you're very passionate about this, but
hey, I'm passionate too. Passion's not the worst thing.
Bro. What's up, y'all? How y'all doing, man?
Pulse Disciple, it's good to meet you. It's good to talk to you.
Yes, good. And first, I want to start this off. I don't hate branding or have all this. I don't carry those type of emotions in this Twitter/crypto world. Okay, but we all opinionated. We're all smart guys. We're all are willing to take a level of risk. I do want to say that I completely disagree with the approach for a few reasons. I do feel like the way you approach things is immature. I do feel like it's a little smart alecky, okay, and short-sighted with concerning Richard Hart. I don't think there's anything you're saying that's super nuanced or anything that everybody else hasn't thought of or saw. But there is a level of belief and there is a level of faith and there's a level of unknown that you are running into when you're in these risk markets. Okay. The thing is that does Richard Hart have a track record of success over years? Absolutely. That's why people were willing to ape in. We can't sit here and say the reason why everything's falling apart is because he didn't deliver on single-sided staking at the beginning.
I've never said that.
Bro, that's the way you act. That's the way you act. You lean on single.
I've never said that everything's falling apart because we don't have single-sided staking.
You just talked about the price being where it's at, and you linked it to the fact that single-sided staking, and he didn't deliver on his design.
Yeah, well, I think not delivering on design intent. I think when fundamentals get worse, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a contributing factor. The price being down, but that's not at all my main critique. My main critique is that because we have the appearance of hypocrisy, because we have the appearance of Richard Hart backtracking on the principles.
What's the major hypocrisy? What's the major hypocrisy?
Many things. So far, there is the criticism that PulseX is duct tape on token. That's because it's lacking utility. Where if you look at HEX, what is HEX? It's decentralized yield That's its kind of use case, and it
What was
has
the
the
purpose?
great. Hold on. Let me finish the
What
point.
was the
Let me
purpose?
finish the
Let
point.
him finish.
I gotta finish
Okay.
a sentence. I gotta finish a point.
Go
But it
ahead.
has the great tokenomics of the T-share system. What is Pulsechain? Pulsechain has the great tokenomics of being deflationary, but its use case is being a gas token. Now let's take a look at PulseX. PulseX has the great tokenomics of the buy and burn, but what's its use case? It was supposed to be a governance token. It's not a governance token. So it seems to me like PulseX is uniquely missing one of these key ingredients that makes Pulsechain and makes HEX so great. It seems to me like one of these things is not like the others. And Furu brought up the point that, hey, the buy and burn kind of in a sense ties the utility of the DEX to the token. And while I would agree that is the case, it still does seem to me to be lacking. It still seems to me like the use case, the utility, a strong bullish narrative is lacking more so in a sense with PulseX than these other things, given how, and this is especially problematic, given that Richard Hart has hinted that he will deliver on this, but now we don't know if and when it's going to happen, at what form it's going to happen. This was all behavior that Richard Hart and every other YouTuber rightly criticizing everyone else, and now we're in the same position, and I'm seemingly the only one who's being intellectually consistent on this matter.
Oh no, you're not the one that's being intellectually consistent. You're behaving just like when everything was being launched, and then Richard Hart was doing constant updates and streaming. Everybody was bitching and complaining if he said one thing that didn't happen exactly the way he kind of was guessing that it would go. And then he got to the point with the community, he was getting frustrated with giving updates because he wasn't sure when it was going to launch. He wasn't sure when everything was going to be finalized, but he was trying to update everybody. But with the insistent bitching and complaining, that Richard Hart started to get even more frustrated. Like, you know what? I'm done doing these updates. Y'all see it when it comes out. And then he went there. He did that way before. That's what happened. That led up to the Pulsechain launch. Richard Hart was backing off from giving the updates way before it even launched because of this type of behavior right here.
He's been going against his principles for a long time. I would agree.
No, it's not about principles. He's been executing the principles with the Pulsechain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. HEX is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. We see the updates happening to PLSX every week. How about maybe he's looking at the market and moving in a way that he feels best?
So our founder was creating a promise
is there
token.
a possibility, Brandon, that Richard Hart has the mindset to say, because he did say, I would like to put things out piece by piece, not the full thing at once. Did he not say that? Did he not say?
No, he preached for years about the extreme importance of launch. No, he did the exact opposite. He did the exact opposite. Richard Hart, for the first 2 years of HEX's existence, did nothing but preach about the extreme importance of launching a fully finalized product all at once, and made fun of every other founder and every other community who created tokens with a roadmap and saying, hey, one day we might do that. Hey, we got to speak one at a time, my guy.
Bro, I'm speaking. Can you?
No, but you asked me a question, I'm responding, and because you don't like what I'm saying, you're trying to speak over me, and we can delve into it. I'm very happy to have a polite conversation where we can hash out a difference of opinion, but we got to speak one at a time. Richard Hart for years spoke about the importance of launching a fully finished product all at once, and made fun of other founders, made fun of other communities for having these promise tokens with a roadmap of, hey, maybe one day we might deliver on this, maybe one day we might deliver on that. The whole thing that made HEX valuable was because it wasn't a project, it was a product. It was fully finished, fully audited, 100% uptime, flawless operation from day one. And a lot of these elements are lacking from PulseX, and I'm just calling out the very obvious juxtaposition. These things are not the same.
Exactly, they're not the same. So you can't grade it the same. It's a freaking DEX. It's not a product like HEX. It's completely different. There's going to be upgrades. There's going to be changes. There's going to be things to look at as the market matures. HEX works completely differently. So to grade it like HEX, that's not being intellectually honest, Brandon. And then I
would agree with you. I don't think it should be. They're different things. HEX is a product.
Brandon, let him go.
So okay, right.
I'm agreeing with you though.
Cool. And so what I'm saying is this: you aped in to PLSX. I get it. It's an emotional thing, especially when you put your life savings. I get that. Maybe that wasn't the smartest thing to do, big homie.
No,
maybe
I would
some of
agree
that
with
should have
you.
went towards HEX staking. Maybe that's But
I have a lot of HEX. I was fully into HEX
cool.
before the SEC crisis.
But when you put up that much risk capital into something, it's emotional. And what's happening is this is the pushback that I give to you, Brandon. When you come on to Twitter and you come on to these streams and you say you're bullish, but at the other side of your mouth is constant complaining about time and when's this and when's that, that don't sound bullish. In a bear market and in places of uncertainty, there is a place to say, do you feel like Richard Hart has done the things in the crypto market for good? And has he not 99% of the time closed on what he said he was going to do?
Yeah, I think the majority of the time, which is
So
why
would
I'm
99%
a bull
of
who
your mouth
continues
be
to buy and
complaining
hold.
that he's not? You're talking about single-sided staking.
That's a really good question. Let me answer. That's a great question. Let me answer. That's a great question. That's a great question. Let me answer it. Because when does it make sense to review and reflect on one's investment thesis? I don't think price down or volatility is a good rationale to really reflect on one's investment thesis, because the entirety of the market is down. You know, people like to say, "Hey, HEX is down 99%." Well, hey, your coin's down 95. Not that much of a difference. Price being down is something common to the entirety of this market. When it does make sense to reflect on one's investment thesis is when the fundamentals change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Richard, going from a public fighter, a public thought leader, a public intellectual, to with very, very little explanation, trying to pull some sort of Satoshi, with Richard having raised so much money, having people make believe that he was going to deliver on design intent, and only after he raised all this money, now, hey, SS single side staking might be good or might be bad. Hey, we might get it. We may or may not get it one day. These are objectively negative new developments in the fundamentals. And because I've been so publicly bullish, going all in on this ecosystem for so many years, I don't know if you know my history, man, but I've been around for years. That I feel like I have to kind of review and go over my investment thesis, because I think the fundamentals have changed. And because I think things have moved in a negative direction, the ultimate kind of consequence of all my critiques is that I've chosen to go from a Richard Hart ecosystem maximalist, where before all I did was invest in HEX Pulsechain, PulseX, and some other coins on the network. Now I feel the need, given a negative development in the fundamentals, to diversify a bit, and that's ultimately where I think I've changed on behavior moving forward. Where there's a negative change in the fundamentals, maybe I need to diversify. I don't know how else it makes sense to behave in a logical manner in an investment market where there's a lot of uncertainty, than to review one's investment thesis when the fundamentals change for the negative. Hello?
Disciple?
Did he tune out? Oh, man. I don't know if...
Did we lose him?
Did we lose you?
Wow,
this guy's letting me go on for a while. Yeah, we can hear you. Did you hear any of what I said?
I heard everything you said, man. And you need to calm down, bro. It's only been 6 months, big homie. Calm down.
I'm pretty calm.
Take a deep breath. No, you're all over the place.
How?
And you're scared. And I get it. You're scared. And that's fine.
Yeah, see, man, like this is a very funny way of criticizing or arguing with someone, because typically, when you argue with someone on the merits of a debate, you go after the specific points you bring up. Like, you could say, "Hey, man, take a breath. Hey, man, you're scared." You can even comment on my
I get why.
Which is why everyone on Twitter is doing.
No.
But it's funny how all the things I mentioned, you tell me that
you talked about talking about talking over somebody,
on
but you're
any of the
constantly talking
actual
over me.
critiques I brought up. So
You talked about talking over somebody, but you're constantly talking over me.
You cut me off halfway through a sentence.
Yeah, I got a phone call.
People finish a sentence, and then it's fine if you have a phone call, man. But typically, we
okay. I didn't.
And then you speak. That's kind of how conversations work.
Okay. I'm talking now. All right. The
Go ahead.
reason why I said you need to calm down is because you're talking about design intent and you're talking about the fundamentals being lost. The fundamentals have not been lost. The fundamentals have been
I never
here.
said the fundamentals were lost. I said they got worse.
Let him finish. Let him finish, Brian.
The fundamentals haven't gone anywhere. Richard Hart fundamentals are all in the code and he's still doing what he's going to do. He's constantly upgrading PLSX. Okay. Along with monitoring the market, along with constantly putting up updates on Twitter. He stopped doing the updates on lives because we all saw what happened when he was doing the pulse chain updates. It blew up in his face multiple times to the point where he was just like, I ain't doing this no more. And we saw him go through that. Is that true or is that false?
Yeah, no, that's
That's what happened. That's why he backed off from doing those streams at that time. And then all the SEC things coming out when he's putting out a DEX of his own, when he's coming out with a layer 1 of his own, because he's financially free, he's probably thinking about this stuff all day more than us that have jobs and shit. He's been in this market for a while. He has experience. He's literally showing us his experience. My thing is, we as Richard Hart Maxes, as quote unquote, if you want to put us in that box, trust what he's done over the years because we've seen him win over and over and over again. So all we say is, hey man, give it a little bit more time, have a little bit more trust, calm down. The whole single-sided
man, I'm a bull. I'm still buying and holding all this stuff.
And because is he allowed to be a fucking human? Is he allowed to go back and forth a little bit sometimes? No, or he has to be perfect. Which one is it? Because
no, that's another great point as well, which is because this is a really good point you brought up. In every single ecosystem, there are risk factors, and this is what the people who criticize Richard Hart don't understand. Which is, Richard Hart, he, there's things not to like about him. He's very opinionated. He's, he went on his whole campaign where he was, the marketing thing. What was the outrage marketing? There's reasons not to like Richard Hart, but the thing that people don't understand is that if you look into any community, any founder long enough, there's going to be something not to like, and every single founder. So these people who say that, oh, hey, there's something not to like with Richard, but I'm holier than that. I'm sure if I looked into your founder long enough, there's going to be something he said that I disagree with. So the job of an investor is to articulate risk out loud and to determine what risk factors are acceptable and what risk factors aren't acceptable. I've highlighted new risk factors that weren't around before the sacrifice phase, and now I have to kind of figure out what the right move is. And I think the right move for me moving forward is just a bit of diversification. That's it, man. I'm still like, you got to understand who you're arguing with here. You're not arguing with an Eric Wall, one of these retard Richard haters that just has a surface level understanding. Man, I've been in this community for years. I was all in on HEX before the sacrifice phases. I've been putting my entire life savings into this stuff. So I understand it very well, and I wanted to do well. But I also cannot allow myself to be intellectually inconsistent. I just can't sleep with myself in that way. When the emperor has no clothes, I just can't point it out, man. There have been some negative developments. Is it the end of the world? No, I don't think it's the end of the world, which is why I continue to buy and hold, which is why I continue to publicly tweet out almost all my buys. But are there some things not to like? Yeah, there's some things not to like. And I think those things lead me to believe that, hey, maybe we could underperform because of them, where maybe if we had a more bullish narrative, a more bullish utility, a more bullish use case, then maybe we could perform better. But without those things, now I'm led to believe that, hey, maybe there's a chance we underperform, and that's an issue, that's a concern, and that's what I've been articulating.
Wait, but could I jump in? Could I jump in for a second and say, like, you're still very bullish on PulseX and Pulse and HEX?
Yeah, because that's the thing, man. Like so, when all this started dropping, I looked outside the ecosystem, right? I looked at the other options, and I'm like, my God, this is all bullshit. There's maybe a 10x here, a 50x here. If I perfectly buy the bottom, perfectly sell the top, I still think there's tremendous opportunity in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
But do I think when the fundamentals get worse, that, hey, maybe if we were going to do 100x, maybe now we only do a 50x or an 80x or whatever it is. I think when things objectively get worse, it's not unreasonable to say that, hey, maybe we don't perform as well because of things getting worse.
Yeah, but I think to Pulse Disciples' point, like given that you're still very bullish, if based on dropping the not dropping, I think it's delaying the single-sided staking.
Outside of single-sided,
but let me just say, like, given like you're still very isn't it like isn't it a little bit you're highlighting the negativity a little bit too much? Like it's not sort of like
Sure, like that's one of the first things Pulse Disciple said when he first got on, and while I don't know if I would agree with you, what I would have a much more easier time agreeing with you is that I'm not unaware that I'm 100% leaving that impression. 100%. Like Pulse,
but
I'm
like
pretty
the
sure
whole
this guy
to
doesn't
be
know
fair,
me
Bro,
very well.
everybody is tired of your crying, big homie. Everybody is. We're just telling you. It's not
Yeah,
just
see,
you.
but like this is
You're
such
not.
a weak point because
And you're not.
I'm out here bringing
Hold on,
up
hold on, hold on, hold
legitimate
on.
concerns,
Hold on.
and then you're
You're
saying
not
crying. I'm
saying
like,
things. I'm not saying that. We're looking at the single-sided staking thing. Like, okay, what's up with this? That's fine that you have that. That's cool. I get it. That was one of your expectations. That's one of the things that you were excited about. But
that's
don't
one of the
act
things
like
that
all the
Richard
fun.
Hart said as a design
Hold
intent.
on.
Yeah.
The way you come off is that it's just the whole thing. The emperor has no clothes and the fundamental. No, bro. Everything is working fine. You just want your single-sided staking. That's cool.
Objectively, no.
And
We have
maybe
no
so.
100% uptime. We have no
If
100%
Richard
audited
Hart
code.
streamed
We have.
tomorrow and came out with single-sided staking tomorrow, would you be done with this?
I'd be happy. I'd say yes. This is a positive change in the fundamentals. It provides a bullish narrative. It provides more utility. I think that is a good thing. I've also said it's
Okay,
funny. It's like you guys are so selective with the tweets you read, the impression you get out of me. You only see half, or you only acknowledge what you want to hear. I've very
no,
publicly
I'm
said
listening,
every chance I
bro. That's
get
what you
that
keep
if
talking
Richard
about.
Hart delivers on single side staking, then I'll happily consider buying again.
Exactly. I'm
Yeah.
listening to you. I'm listening to what you're constantly complaining about, and it's not that much. It's a couple of things, but those couple of things outweigh all the awesomeness that's going on, and I don't get it.
I'm not sure I get it either because I'm very publicly talking about all my buys and holding as well. So,
But
I
you're
don't
way
agree.
more comfortable complaining. Do you realize how many tweets you be coming out with complaining? It's like every day. Bro, that was like a month where you were like complaining every day, bro. And
Yeah,
it's the bear market, bro. People are already down already. And this is a thing that's moving and changing. We got to deal with SEC issues. It's a layer one. This is not HEX. It's just a kind of like a financial instrument asset, and the product is done complete. No, this is something that's ebbing and flowing, and upgrades to the layer one when ETH upgrades. They're looking at all types of stuff. How are these DEXs is going to be dealt with the SEC? That's a big issue. Maybe there's things in the background to say maybe we should hold off on single-sided staking until we know what the SEC is going to do. Maybe I'm looking at this from a broader scope than Brandon, who's right now focused on his life savings in PLSX.
Well, let me jump in. Can I jump in and Pulse Disciple? Just so there was. It seems like your biggest concern is maybe disproportionate complaining for what based on like it's a little bit.
I'm saying
it's a little
listen to
bit
your community. Your community's telling you, hey, bro, that's too much. You kind of complaining too much. I get it that you're mad about it.
Yeah. No, my question to you is though, is that so there was single-sided staking on the testnet, and a lot of people did sacrifice, and obviously Brandon sacrificed a lot based on the single-sided staking. And then Richard came out and was like, it's stupid, and then he sort of said maybe we'll do it, and it hasn't happened. I mean, what do you think about Brandon's gripe? Is there legitimacy to it?
Yes, I think
my weight.
I think that it's something that he's looking at and it's important to him, but I think that there's economic factors, market factors that maybe Richard Hart sees, and I trust Richard Hart's mindset to say, okay, I believe that he's smart enough to not do the single-sided staking right now for a reason, and I trust Richard Hart. So I'm going to stay in that lane.
But what about the just saying it was stupid?
Huh?
Like,
okay. Yeah, because we know he's brash. We know how he comes. He'll say something stupid. He'll say something like that, right? We know he can come off like that, right?
But it felt like going back on the promise, though, because he did say he did imply we're going to get it.
Right. And I would say this. Check me out, Furu. If he's seeing that single-sided staking is up on the docket to be something that the SEC can put out a cease and desist order on your product, and he's assessing like, okay, I don't want to bring that and then have to deal with that issue. Let me look at doing, man, maybe we don't even need single-sided staking. Maybe it's stupid, Maybe that was a premature comment that Richard Hart made. Fair criticism. Cool, that's fine. But is that the whole because he said single-sided staking is stupid, he might not even do it, means he's just completely ruined the fundamentals of everything he's got going on?
No, I've never
Absolutely
said that.
not.
And I never implied that either.
Yes, you have, bro.
That's your interpretation. I've spent this whole conversation clarifying
Chat,
what I meant.
let the chat say it, bro.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, man. Look, also, what I think is a problem is Richard Hart, leaving the appearance of wild hypocrisy and turning against the principles he espoused for years. And what I'm kind of pointing out was the fact that he had more than one tweet where he criticized Satoshi for abandoning his project and not being kind of a public thought leader and a public founder. And I understand, I think it was Somi who was saying that, hey, man, that was part of Richard Hart's outrage marketing phase. You got to understand that was kind of like a tactic. And I understand that was a tactic of his. But regardless, it leaves the impression of wild hypocrisy for him to, again, be the guy for when Hex comes out, spending 4 hours, 2 days, no sleep, debating, 3 lawyers on the merits of what isn't a security, for him to go from, criticizing Satoshi for abandoning his project, not being there during hard times, and then for him to do pretty much the exact same thing with no justification when... Again,
so you compare
when other people say, again, guys, like we're all bulls here, whether or not you want to admit it or not. But when an outside person, when new money comes and they see this ecosystem, they're not going to interpret things in the best possible theoretical lighting. They're going to interpret things, frankly, the way I'm saying, just how you are choosing to interpret what I'm saying in the worst possible lighting. When new money comes and they review this ecosystem and they see what's going on, they're going to see the exact same thing. And that is an issue. Richard Hart being a hypocrite is an issue because it means that we're losing the intellectual and moral high ground. And that's not trivial. That is not irrelevant. These little critiques that you're trying to brush away as irrelevant, I'm
not brushing away as irrelevant, Brandon.
Aren't irrelevant.
It is hyperbole,
I worry they're not irrelevant.
I'm not brushing you off as irrelevant, bro.
I'm saying
it's hyperbole.
I'm saying Richard Hart not delivering on single-sided staking, Richard Hart having the appearance of hypocrisy, I worry are not irrelevant. I worry that they can lead us to underperform if the circumstances were otherwise.
Wait, let me just before Pulse Disciple responds. Is there legitimacy to Brandon's concerns?
Concerns about
the single-sided staking, about the
appearance of hypocrisy.
Yeah. Is there any?
To try to equate Richard Hart with Satoshi is massive hyperbole. To try to equate not having single-sided staking right now to loss in fundamentals in the way that he thinks is huge hyperbole.
Well, hyperbole does imply that there is something. It's just exaggerated. So you are agreeing. You're saying there is something.
Yeah,
see, Brandon, he's not that bad. He's not. He's saying I understand, but he's saying
I'm saying not getting single-sided staking is like, what the fuck, man? Damn. But I trust in Richard Hart enough to say, okay, he's doing it for a reason. There's something going on that I probably don't see.
That's all well and good. Scope and I can appreciate that perspective tremendously. You're betting on a person, which is not unreasonable. Many people in all forms of investing see, hey, I see this individual as being unique. He's a trailblazer. He's killing it. I'm going to bet on this person. And hey, everything might not be hashed out. Maybe there's some things not to like, but I'm going to bet on this person because I think he has what it takes. And I don't think that's unreasonable. And I understand that completely. But what I'm trying to think about is how other people, how new money, how people who aren't all day on Hex Twitter are viewing this, okay? People who haven't drank the Kool-Aid. And I do think that from an outside perspective, these things can act as reasons for buy pressure to be diverted away. Like I fear that these things aren't irrelevant. You're essentially, from what I'm getting, saying that, hey, Brandon, while these things might, there may or may not be some truth to them, it's really kind of not a big deal. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. This is kind of what I'm getting.
I'm saying,
and I hope that's the case.
That your speculation doesn't mean it's the rule. You're moving as if like You're moving as if like you completely know.
I've never said anything in terms of certainties.
You don't know.
I try to be extremely careful and not speak in terms of certainties.
No, but Disciple, what do you think about the hypocrisy that Brandon's alleging, and it could maybe hurt new money? Do you think there's anything to that?
No, I don't see the hypocrisy.
You don't see the hypocrisy of Richard Hart spending 4 hours debating 3 lawyers when Hex went live with 2 days of no sleep. For 4 hours, he debated the merits about whether what is and isn't a security. You juxtapose that to when the SEC actually goes after Richard Hart for launching securities, nothing disappears into thin air. There's no juxtaposition. There's no change.
So you
there.
so
But that's
so
not true, Brandon. That's not true. He didn't disappear.
What's not true?
I prepared the tweet where he sort of doubled down. He's active on Twitter.
But that's not the issue, is it? The issue is not that he's live on Twitter. The issue is that he painted himself. The standard he set for himself is, I am a public fighter. I am not Satoshi. I am not the guy who just disappears in the thin air. I am the fighter. I am the guy who spends 4 hours, 2 days of no sleep, debating 3 lawyers about the merits of what is an instant security. That's who I am. That is the standard Richard Hart set for himself. That is the Richard Hart that I grew to appreciate. That is the Richard Hart that I invested in. Just like Pulsechain, you're saying, I'm betting on Richard Hart. So am I, man. But I'm betting on the Richard Hart of 2 years ago, and I'm saying that the Richard Hart of 2 years ago is not the Richard Hart that we have today. And there's a degree of appearance of hypocrisy. There's a degree of things being unexplained, and those are problematic.
Oh, I would say before, but we're dealing with different circumstances where the SEC is investigating, and there are a lot of things you can and can't do, and stuff like that.
But like I was trying to mention earlier, that this is a tactic that Richard Hart is choosing to do. He could choose to be the Donald Trump figure and go balls to the wall. But I understand lawyers would say, hey, shut the fuck up. We're going to do this behind the scenes. But again, that still is in contradiction to how he painted himself.
But the most important thing is to win. And if ultimately this is for winning, so isn't it maybe?
Sure, but and in the end we might be. And in the end, 2 years from now, this might have been the ultimate best path, and we just had to go through a rough period to get to the the gold at the end of the rainbow, and that might actually end up being the case. But in the meanwhile, there is the appearance of hypocrisy. There's the appearance of hypocrisy in that regard. There's the appearance of him going back to his principles. There's him literally not delivering on design intent. And I don't think I'm the only one who sees this. And I fear that
no, he had to go to work. This has to be maybe continued on the Pulse Nation also,
but look, man, again, in my opinion, whenever one tries to debunk someone, you need to go after what they actually say.
Bro, I've been directly going after what you're saying. What you're saying is wrong. It's okay to adapt and change when the system, when the circumstance.
What have I said that's wrong?
What you're saying is that he's being all hypocritical. No, he's adapting and changing according to what's going on right in front of him, like a smart person would. Not just sit up there and do the same tactic when it's like going into halftime in a football game and you see a problem that's happening and you just keep running the same offense. No, don't be an idiot. Switch up and be smart. Like he's moving according to from what his intelligence and what his experience has shown. And he's doing it according to what he feels is worked out for all of us. Amazing.
Yeah. Brandon, do you think he still really wants it to do well? You think there's been a loss in his? No, I'm saying like Brand, I mean, it would come down to whether or not Richard has lost interest or is do you think that's the case, or you think he's being more strategic? I would say based on his Twitter sentiment, it seems like he's just doing
there's a case that he's being strategic, absolutely, and I would say that's the likely case, especially from what we've seen. But again, the issue is that there's not an unreasonable case to be made that there was the appearance of him having walked away. I mean, for example, if you just for a moment switch the name Richard Hart with Charles Hoskinson or any other public founder in crypto, and would Pulse Disciple be as vigorously defending Charles Hoskinson if he was doing the exact same thing Richard was doing? I don't think you would, man. I don't think you would.
Charles Hoskinson is not Richard Hart, bro.
That's not my point. My point is that if any other founder was pulling the shit that Richard is pulling now, every single Hex YouTuber would be screaming from the rooftops criticizing it, just like they did 2 years ago.
What shit is he pulling?
Yeah, not delivering on design intent and being a hypocrite, going against the principles he espoused for years. If any other founder did this,
what's the principle that he espoused for years that he went against?
Like I've said several times at this point, Richard Hart painted himself as a public leader, as a public fighter,
So he's
And
not in
he
the public no
criticized
more.
and he criticized other founders for doing exactly what he's doing right now.
What's that?
Disappearing.
Not being a public fighter. When you paint yourself as, hey, I am the guy who challenges the people who criticize my stuff. And at the point of the most fear, uncertainty, and doubt, for him to disappear with no explanation.
But he didn't
is
disappear. You
hypocrisy.
keep saying that, and it's not.
Well, disappear in the sense that he did a complete 180 from who he was previously. How when it was just a theoretical thing about whether this stuff was or isn't a security. Oh, he was a fighter back then when it was just theoretical. But now that it's real, now he's doing this semi Satoshi thing where he's kind of tweeting maybe it's a bot or maybe it's my assistant
So
or
Satoshi
all this
tweets.
nonsense, and not just something else. Something else I got to bring up, which is disgusting.
Satoshi tweets.
Richard Hart tweet.
Satoshi tweets and basically lays out the whole argument that he has towards the SEC and is constantly tweeting and putting out information. So Satoshi is constantly upgrading Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's a weak point, man. Because not only is that not the
weak?
point I'm
No,
making,
your
but that's
point
not
is
how
weak.
anyone is going to
You're just
interpret
mad because he has his stream. You're mad because he has his stream, and you're mad that you don't have single-sided staking. Outside of that,
going
you don't
with the
really
worst
have
possible
anything,
interpretation of what someone's saying is
No,
a
I'm listening to
terrible
you,
way.
bro.
It's a weak way of criticizing someone.
No, your criticism is weak. Your criticism overall is weak. You don't have that much. You really don't.
Wild hypocrisy and not delivering on design intent.
Am I saying that you don't have a point about single-sided staking and you would like to see him stream more? Fine, fantastic.
That's not the point, man.
It
seems to me like you're trying very hard to miss the point.
But try to
let him finish.
I stand up for myself. I'm not a bitch. I'm not a Richard Hart butt kisser. I'm showing everybody that I'm strong. No, not really.
Wait, let me add Disciple. I mean,
sure
Brandon B is obviously very talented. He's gotten to 30K subs. Very good technical analyst and speech skills. And potential very valuable asset to the community as you are as well. So I'm saying like what and you acknowledge some legitimacy yet hyperbole of the concerns that maybe they're not communicated proportionately, whatever. So I mean, what do you want to see out of Brandon? Like what would be the ideal Brandon? Like what do you want out of him?
Bro, just keep it balanced and be real about you do have a great product. Richard Hart has stood up. He is still standing up overall. PLSX is still a great product. It's doing what it's supposed to do for us. PLSX and Pulse was built for HEX. And now you do have a place where you can swap and trade and have a community about it. There's a couple of things that we wanted that we're looking for. But just don't act like Richard Hart has just been fundamentally hypocritical and all his stuff. That's not true. That's not true. And he's delivered over and over and over again when people doubted him. And I believe that he's going to deliver on this. And there's no reason to think that he's not. There's no reason. Let me say it right. There's no major, big, significant reason to feel like that he's not. He's still active on Twitter. He's still talking. We understand the SEC FUD. But we don't know what Richard Hart's going through in the background. We don't know his overarching mindset because he did stop doing updates, big updates, live and stuff like that a while ago before SEC because he was tired of saying things and being held to a pinpoint drop on every single thing when it didn't exactly happen exactly how he said. So he pulled back and was like, well, you know what? I ain't doing that no more. And we all witnessed that. And he is a human being. He's a person that's flawed.
Yeah.
He's not going to be perfect. You're going to go back and forth. You're going to be hypocritical in your speech sometimes and say something that maybe you shouldn't have said. And,
sure.
or you said something and it might contradict something you said earlier when you speak that much. Those things happen because we're people. It doesn't mean that this person is fundamentally going against all of his stuff. That's not true. That is not true. I'm saying is be more balanced. Like there's things that you want in your major investment that you make, and it makes you worried about it. But it doesn't mean the whole world is burning down and everything's like falling apart. No. Sometimes sometimes a person does need to maybe take a step back and say, okay, maybe I'm so locked in right now. This is all I see. Maybe there's more than what you see. And be honest about it. You're not the only smart person. You're not the only person that's thinking. You're not the only person.
I don't think I'm smart.
Huh?
I don't think I'm that smart.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because all this intellectual honesty and saying it like that is suggesting that you're thinking and other people aren't. That you see something that other people don't see. And everybody sees the single-sided staking issue. Everybody sees that he's not live. We all want him to go live. Yeah. I don't really care about the single-sided staking as much as you guys do, but would it be cool? Absolutely. But I don't think that that means PLSX isn't going to perform in this bull cycle.
I never said that. I said I think it'll underperform.
I think when Disciple's saying like that you said, I mean, he's not like quoting you, and he means like, I don't know, it's like the vibe, I guess. Like it feels like it feels like you're not as bullish as you should be when the critiques are, even albeit legitimate, are a little bit magnified. Is that fair?
And that's an area where I could say that, you know what, maybe there's something to what you guys have to say. And guys, look, man, the stakes in this game are so high. Like I'm not super well off. Neither is my family. I need to get this investment stuff right in order to have a hope of having any kind of financial security in the future. And so, like, you gotta understand, man, from my opinion, I feel like I cannot afford to ignore things, to be naive about things, because there's only so many mistakes you can make in this game. Like, this is such a high stakes game that look, just so you understand me a little bit more from where I'm coming from, I feel like this community is not going to pay my bills. It's not going to keep the light on. What is me getting this investment thing right. And so I feel like I cannot afford to be naive. I cannot afford to not consider risks. And look, again, when I get the chance to clarify, my ultimate position is that, hey, I'm just going to diversify a little moving forward. That's it. That's my ultimate position. Like, again, I got to say, man, you're not arguing with one of the Zero Wall guys. I still understand there's massive opportunity. I've been a bull in this ecosystem for years. I put my entire life savings. I don't like, I get that there's opportunity here. I get that there's things like with Richard Hart, but I think there's been a couple real negative developments that I fear can lead us to underperform. And what I hear from what you're saying is that, hey, Brandon, like, you're probably like blowing this way out of proportion. And I goddamn hope you're right. I really hope.
What I'm saying is, have you ever had a business, Brandon? Have you ever started a business?
Yeah.
And when you start that business, you have hope and you believe that you're going to be profitable. And then what happens in the first 6 months usually? A pipe bust. This doesn't work. This equipment goes wrong. Or you might get a negative review like out of nowhere on a person that you did good business with, and like, what the hell? I've had that happen to me, and you have that happen to you. There's going to be ups and downs, okay? But you came into this ecosystem, you believed in Richard Hart because of what you saw consistently, and that's still there. That is still there. It's not gone. There's a couple of hiccups that have happened. But overall, things are cooking. And there's no reason to go on Twitter to the community and constantly be bringing up what you don't like when most of the stuff you like.
Also, another thing, just to maybe this might help clarify just where I'm coming from mentally. A lot of me tweeting this is in response to people tweeting at me. So a lot of me, like, every day, whatever, because I will admit I have been fucking going hard. Like, it's not like I don't get it. Like, where are people coming from? No, I understand. But it's mostly because I see something stupid in the comments, and I'll like reply. I feel like I have to reply to that. Like, I don't know if you guys get this impression, but I feel like I got that like debate kid energy in me. Like, I can't let things go whenever I see something. So a lot of that too is me, man, just like seeing something on Twitter, and I feel I need to respond to it. Like,
well, you know what?
And let me just say, I
will leave you alone. I'll put that out there. I will leave you alone.
And to be fair, Pulse Disciple, is it fair? You came a little hard with the retaliation,
but you know how I am, Furu.
I know, but it escalates.
It comes off like that, but really it's all up. And I will say this: I understand having your family on your back. I have my family on my back too. And this is the most I've ever gone in on anything besides my own dental practice. Outside of that, this is the most I've ever taken my personal funds and gone in on. So I get it. I get it, bro. I hear you on that. But for your own emotional stability in this thing, you got to calm down on it and realize it's going to be ups and downs and be able to take that bird's eye view too. And know, like, okay, there's a couple things I didn't like. Man, why'd that happen? But overall, things are cooking. Overall, things are cooking. Richard Hart tweeting. When you saw him go on those Twitter rants in the last week, it's because he's getting ready to pop, you know? I bet you he wants to stream more than we want him to stream. He's not stupid. He knows what he's doing. Telling you, and we all know that. We know that he's a person that looks out, steps ahead. We've seen him do that. So that's what, you know, that's a part of belief. Patience is struggle, and patience is pain. Patience is painful, man. And
Yeah,
this is the
I agree.
most
You're
I've ever
preaching
sat
to the
down
choir.
with
Yeah, let me just say a big soft spot that I have for Brandon and Brandon has for me is like we're like younger and like, you know, we're not as I don't think we're as wise or as experienced as you, and like we get into this game and we haven't really tested ourselves and experienced like backlash and stuff. So I think you as I guess more of a leader, more experienced.
Twitter,
What would you tell us?
Twitter is the most vicious social media space that I've ever witnessed in my life.
Yeah,
extremely vicious. So there's a part of you got to detach yourself from, because it's just people talking shit. And I love it. I just use it as entertainment. You can use it for news and everything like that. But it's just people talking shit all day.
Oh yeah.
It's the most toxic, in my personal opinion, of all the social media spaces, more than Instagram and everything.
Oh yeah.
So you're gonna get that. But I would say but also too, because you have a good point doesn't mean you have the point. You might have a point, but you got to recognize when it's not the point. You have a point, but is it the point? Not so much.
Yeah,
and so that's all we saying.
That's another good point as well.
That's all we saying.
That's a good point as well, and that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out myself. Is exactly how you put it? Is this a point or is this the point? And that's kind of where the uncertainty lies. And he's gone. But I was going to say as well.
I'll be back.
That look, even though I disagree with you a bit and even Westcott on some stuff, I think your guys' show is great. I think you guys are killing it. I used to see a couple of your streams, and look, like, guys, even though we disagree and you might not like it,
just repeat that in case you didn't hear it. Repeat that.
Yeah, Pulse Disciple, since you're back.
Yeah, sorry, my phone is going dead, but I got you for a few seconds. It's finna go dead.
All good. I'll say this real quick. Look, man, even though we probably disagree with each other on a couple of things, and me and Westcott, we disagree on a couple of things, I still, I've seen a couple of your live streams, guys, and I think you guys are killing it. I think we probably agree on most things. It just seems like we're having to focus on an area of disagreement, because that's what's been kind of been being that's what's been the focus as of late. But I think you guys are killing it. I think you guys are doing a good job, and I think on the whole we probably agree. It just seems that we happen to focus on this one area of disagreement.
Well, and I think that me and Westcott have kind of taken on a lane of being these Richard Hart defenders. Like, we're like, not my founder. You're not gonna talk shit about my founder. Type of thing. And so, we kind of have fun and go back with that as like a vanguard. And so, but now listening to you, talking to you, I guess you kind of cool, man. I guess you kind of.
Wait, do we get a brand? Is Brandon B? Do we get a Brandon B on Pulse Nation?
I don't know. That's up to Wes and ATX.
Westcott,
we want to see what you say in the chat.
That's up to Wes and ATX, man. I just help out where I can. You know how.
It's okay. I haven't been making a lot of friends lately. It's.
Hey, me neither. Hey, we're in this together.
Yeah, no, I fully understand. I'm like showing up to a party talking about AA meetings. I get it.
But hey, man, y'all keep cooking, man. I'm gonna get up out of here, man. Appreciate y'all letting me on.
Oh, what? Yeah, thanks for coming on anytime. And Westcott says absolutely.
Good to talk to you.
So yeah, you guys correspond in the DMs, man. Brendan, you down to go on the Pulse Nation?
I'm happy to talk to anyone, man. Hell,
Okay.
I'm even happy to talk to Briz. I know Briz doesn't like me much, but I think in these times it's inevitable that things are going to get heated. People, it's not just me who has life savings in this, significant amount in this. It's fully understandable. I completely understand, and I frankly fucking hope Disciples right. I hope he's like, Brandon, you're focusing way too much on this. You're fucking making a mountain out of a molehill. God damn it, I hope he's right, man. I hope I'm fucking wrong. I hope all this worry was just for nothing. Because again, I'm a bull, man. I got my fucking entire life savings in this. I hope that all this worry was for nothing. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be for nothing. For what it's
I
worth.
hope
I think
so.
you think that too.
Yeah, because again, man, like when I said like, oh, I'm gonna start diversifying, right? I started looking at the rest of the market, like, fuck, these options are trash. These options are trash, and so that's when I said, I'm gonna just buy RH things and some other things too, just because look, here's the thing, that might, I think, bring some kind of I don't know, a bit of clarity or a bit of context to where I've been coming from. I found this one. This is a little bit of a divergence, but I hope you allow me just 2 minutes to diverge. I found this YouTube channel. This is a very obscure YouTube channel not too long ago. It's called DBDR or something. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's a very small YouTube channel. It's got 30, 40, a couple tens of thousands of subscribers. And it was a really funny channel.
Oh, you cut.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back. It was a really funny
It's just
channel.
Yeah. So it's a really funny, really obscure channel where the whole point of that channel is just a dude who's talking over someone playing video games. He just copies the whatever the video game from someone else, and he just talks over it. And he talks about his life. And it's this young dude, guy in his like something 20s, 23, something like that. Like he's young 20s. And what I found so interesting about this channel, man, is that he'll make like 20, 30-minute videos, and the whole time he'll just talk about his life. And he's this massive kind of like black-pilled doomer guy. His life is very, very rough. He talks about how I'm poor. I got no hope for the future. Like he just says about himself. I'm ugly. I'm unmotivated. Like I don't see hope. I'm working at this shitty job, and I got no hope for the future. And shit's so rough. My family's fucked up. My family has mental health issues. My dad's an alcoholic. My mom's crazy, and he just goes on these 20-30 minute rants about like some new aspect about either him dealing with depression or him dealing with lack of motivation or him dealing with how he's barely getting by. And what I found so interesting is that, man, this guy is getting tens of thousands of views per video. He has tens of thousands of subscribers, and it's this really, really obscure channel. And I'm like, how many other people are in that position or a similar position where they're dealing with so much financial struggle, life struggle, and they're so down in the dumps. And I thought, man, for this guy to just be go on a 30-minute depressing rant and him have so much viewership, I think it really puts in context the stakes of what we're dealing with. Because while my situation, everyone's situation is different, I think there is a bit of similarity in that the consequences of not having financial freedom are so dire, man. They're so dire. Getting this shit wrong, oh my god, it's all or nothing for me. And so I bring this up because I think it puts into context how important it is to get crypto right. Because the consequences of getting it wrong is, I'm not saying that guy's position, but just like poverty, it's destitution. Where, in my opinion, financial freedom allows you the liberty to pursue your higher goals in life, go to school, get educated, start a business. It gives you freedom, gives you options. And without that financial security, you're without options. So that's why I am particularly sensitive to whether or not I am or not getting this thing right. And I think it is important to, consider these things, consider where it can be right or wrong. And I'll even happily admit that maybe you guys have a point that, hey, maybe I've been way too over focused on one side of the situation. And I hope that ends up being the case. But just, I don't know. I thought that would be helpful to provide a bit of context of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, for sure, man. And honestly, most people that are in this space are going through something because you're looking for a lot of money very quickly. So there's a little bit of so to speak, maybe like desperation, urgency, and and that could get us doing things and saying things that maybe we should or should not be saying. I definitely have experience with that, and we all feel you. I think Pulse Disciple really likes you, man. I think we're all going to be good. I'm really confident, and I think I'm very confident. I think you're also, but obviously
I'm hopeful. Hopeful with some concerns.
All right, yeah, and before we leave it, guys, hit the like button and subscribe. By the way, we got to plug your social. Just tell us about the Brandon B Twitter a little bit.
Yeah, so I have been very active on.
If Twitter. Anyone didn't realize after this that Brandon B is on Twitter,
yeah, I am on Twitter.
That.
Yeah, guys, look, if you appreciate someone who's a bit of a contrarian voice, not afraid to be contrarian, definitely give me a follow. If you want to follow someone who will just tell you what you want to hear constantly 24/7, I'm not the guy to follow. But at the end of the day, man, I always like to think that I don't think it's the end of the world to disagree with people. I think you can disagree with people and still be friendly and still be friends, because I've done it in my past. I've gone through circumstances where I was very close friends with people I strongly disagreed with. And so I'm the kind of person that I don't think disagreeing with people is the end of the world. And so I haven't been super active in a while on YouTube. I've been pretty busy nowadays, working almost every day, long hours. Yeah, back on that grind. But I'm not gone forever. I definitely want to get back, and then hopefully, as I have certain days off, I'll start uploading. But I'm definitely active on Twitter, at Brandon B, be me. And then eventually, I 100% want to get back to the Brandon B show. It's been put on pause for the moment, but it's definitely not gone forever.
That was what was up next. When was the last time you streamed?
Oh, it's been a while.
2 months, man.
What was it debating? Oh, it's been 3 months. Jeez.
Bro, you're Richard Harding us, man.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I should have a bit more sympathy. I guess I am kind of fucking pulling it.
All right, we're plugging it in, and congrats, you hit over 1,000 on YouTube and Twitter. So
yeah, no, that's nice. Yeah, I've been hovering around 1,000 on Twitter for a while. I keep losing people every time I open my mouth.
Hey, I know what you feel, man.
Yeah, yeah, I know you do. Yeah, man. But look, I think at the end of the day, we're all really on the same team, and I want all of us to do well. And I also want to congratulate all of you guys who held through like all this FUD, man, all this down, all this depression. And we're now getting, like I said earlier, I think this is really just a taste. It's just a taste of things to come. This is not going to be the first parabolic run up we see. There's going to be many more in the future. Well, I do have some concerns. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think there is still reason to be hopeful, while there are some reasons to have some concerns. But again, it's the same with every cryptocurrency. Like, you look at something else, there's going to be things not to like. And so the job of an investor is to determine, what risk factors are palatable and which ones aren't, and to look at risk and consider risk and to not stick your head in the sand. It's important to seek out risk and debate risk and talk to people who disagree with you, so you can get a sense of, hey, maybe I'm I've failed to consider this, or maybe through seeing an issue through a different point of view, you get a different perspective that maybe you were failing to see earlier. This is why, even though like during the beginning of like during much of that conversation, it was I don't want to say heated, but like we disagreed, but I actually, I don't know what Disciple's point of view was, but I actually appreciated that conversation. I really, really like, personally, I'm a bit of a weirdo in this sense, I really like talking to people who disagree with me. I actually enjoy it.
Just the problem is Twitter never, you see how healthy it is on YouTube and Twitter.
Oh yeah, no, Twitter is just like a contest to like advertise who's more mentally ill. Like it's just...
Yeah, dude, I've been like less active on Twitter as all because of that, but
yeah.
No, it's great you guys hashed it out, and it's gonna be interesting to see how things go moving forward, man. But yeah, guys, hit the like button, subscribe to Brandon B on YouTube, Twitter, and thank you so much for coming on, man. It's really a pleasure having you.
Oh, dude, thank you so much for inviting me and for hosting this conversation, and for being willing to touch an issue that I think a lot of people aren't. I think you deserve a lot more credit than you get, man. And I think there's a large but silent portion of people out there that appreciates someone who's able to touch on controversial issues. I think that's a very valuable thing that you do, and I think the education you do is really valuable, man. So thank you so much for having me on, and I appreciate Disciple for coming on and for hashing that out, even though we did disagree with each other. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't know what his point of view is of me, but I appreciate people who are willing to have difficult conversations. I think they're really valuable, and I enjoy them personally.
All right, guys, like, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.